in the economy and seeing how we can get out of what seemed to be a troubling situation in the country. Well, statistics have shown that the activities of government, particularly after disbursement of money by the Federal Account Allocation Committee, contributes to the depreciation of the Naira. This argument has been there, but it appeared it was speculation all along, but there seems to be a data now that has proven that this is actually true. So we have made effort to bring in an economist who will help us get a sense of what this is all about. Paul Alaje joins us now, an economist of repute. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you so very much for having me.
And welcome.
Thank you.
I remember that the last time you were here, you really hinted on this, that, what the governors or the subnational governments do with the money they come to collect in Abuja contributes to what is happening with the Naira. Today, on the papers, we saw 1,900, 1,800, that's dollar, and then 2,000 plus for the pounds. Please, help us clarify this once again. Is that true, the situation?
Well, I can only talk about what the number says. The economists have tried to correlate, this is a statistical method, at best econometrics, to see what happens when FARC is paid and what is happening in the parallel markets. From what has been observed, the more FARC grows, at least in the last 1 year, in terms of increase in payments, thanks to the president, because of some of his policies, has now made money grow that is payable to subnational from about 400 to $600 billion. It has now grown to about 1.1 to 1.9 trillion naira. So what we have seen is that instead of some of these increases to impact in what will be happening at the state level, say construction of road, say support for those that are poor, and so on and so forth, what we perhaps have seen is that there seems to be consistent increase in the dollar. So the question is, where are people really getting money to buy these FX from? So we look at what has changed in the system. Then economists and researchers felt, okay, let's take some variables and use ceteris paribus, that's other things being equal, for the remainder. So the releases from FARC was isolated, and the growth in exchange rate was also considered, and they returned positive. It returned positive. So if a medical doctor says somebody has an HIV, he can deny it. He can say, no, it's not my reality. But until that test shows that it is not a reality, scientifically, we would say no. But as of now, what data is showing, and data will not lie, is that there is that correlation between what is shared at FARC and not just what is shared, the days that is shared. A week from when FARC is shared, you see sporadic increase in FX. So what could be happening between 1 to 2 weeks that we have seen consistent growth in exchange rate? And this is important. I believe the intent of government was that an assumption of so many international organizations that have advised Nigeria to remove subsidy was that if you remove subsidy, there will be more money to government. Because when you look at national income equation, where we say Y, which is income, they say income, national income equals to the consumption of household, investment of firm, government expenditure, the net income from abroad. Now, government expenditure, one of the things government was spending on was subsidy. One of the things government was spending on was to intervene in the FX market and a lot of other things, including roads, so many paying salaries and so on. But when government now says we are not going to pay, we want household and firm to pay for themselves, then you see that revenue will increase, or government monies I was spending would increase. Now that increase is supposed to have impact in the overall economy. But we are not seeing that. We are not seeing it, one, because rather than making the economy to grow, we are seeing a siege of some sort. For most states, and I know that people are online, on social media, commenting, if they are seeing major difference, or they have seen major programs in their states, that is that can be equated to the increase that have happened to their state, then they should just put it. So that we can look at other areas. But for now, where researchers and economists, I'll be very sincere with you, is that the increase in what goes to the subnationals seems to be impacting on the FX market, especially the parallel market. I don't think there are poor people who will want to buy $1 million, $2 million.
Exactly where I was coming to, because from the revelation and the analysis, I mean, you said it here earlier, it shows that from July 2023 to January this year, Naira depreciated in 6 months, immediately in the black market after FAC shared money to federal, state, and local government level. But I think for a lot of people is this revelation that the portions of the funds from FAC, which were often changed to dollars by some government at the parallel market, is what's putting pressure on the Naira.
It's one of the things putting pressure. There are a few other things putting pressure on the Naira. Now, this practice, I must tell you, is not new. So, but when people have less money, they change part to dollars. Now, I can't say that some subnational are not even sure that things will be better. So to secure their destiny, quote and unquote, is to buy dollars. Now, what happens to poor people that we have all around our country? Do we really know the meaning of storing our money in dollars? Do we really know what it means? If I have time, I will explain to us.
You have time, please. You have the floor. Explain that.
Speak, it's like breaking the backbone of our means of exchange, the Naira. And when someone's backbone is broken, you are going to see that the person will be on the bed for a long time. You need medical doctor, especially you need physiotherapist. As we speak, Naira has fallen from a very tall building, taller than the Cocoa House in Ibadan.
And crashed with his head.
And he has crashed with his backbone. Because the continuous fall of Naira is one that surprises all economists, especially myself. I have not said that we have done the right thing with the Naira. No. But I've told you that over the years, we have protected the Naira more than we have enhanced the Naira, because there are two different things. What central bank has done over the years is to intervene in the market. But enhancing Naira means we have deliberately made supply side to grow. The question is, apart from crude, what else are we exporting to the rest of the world? What rest? What other thing are we exporting to the rest of the world? But we want to drive the best cars. They are not made in Nigeria. We want to wear the best clothes that are not made in Nigeria. And I told you the last time, some people impregnate their wife, export their wife, and import their children back into Nigeria. So these are real concerns. So when we keep demanding for all of these, without thinking someday that we need to start producing some of them locally, we will continue to have the continuous fall of Naira. But why is this sporadic? It's because there are some giants that have endless wallets. Their pocket is deep. They can get to the market, buy from the market, and when they do that, what happens? The exchange rate will fall. I mean, Naira will fall. So if we continue like this, unfortunately, accompanying data shows that we are not having, Naira is not favored in terms of exchange rate, because with the projection that we are seeing between 2007 to 2005 year end, is not what we want to see. And that is why researchers, economists will continue to put the number out for government to see what we can do to correct this thing. I saw yesterday, or I heard yesterday, EFCC effort in Abuja on June 4 to curtail those who are exchanging by the roadside. We have also seen that there are new policies, circulars shared by the central bank regarding banks. Well, the level of compliance is another thing to bother with, if central bank has done review of some sort. But here is the challenge. When you have exchange rate getting poorer, and you have the people getting poorer, and you have inflation, the last time I came it was 28. Right now I told you to be between 29.5 to 30.5. But what we had was 29.9, which was beyond our lower limit. We have that going up, and we have unemployment going up. Is a recipe for disaster. Those four indicators in economics must not be combined. Unfortunately, we are no longer suffering from just inflation. We are now suffering from stagflation. So where you have economic downturn, even though your GDP number, whether they say it or not, is a different kettle of fish Whatever you get in GDP, you have to look at your inflation and see the impact. Instrument of purchase in Nigeria is Naira. What has happened to Naira in the last 1 year? It's another concern, both official and parallel markets. And for a country that is importing so much, and the relative income of household remains the same, or at best maybe has grown by 2 to 5%. When you compare that with your instrument of purchase, nothing changed in America, nothing changed in the dollar. There are other countries, such as Saudi Arabia, they have the same exchange, their exchange rate to the dollar has relatively remained the same. It is Nigeria and the policy that have issues. That Naira has been devalued by nearly 200%. And I'm being charitable because in the real sense, about 240% of the devaluation. What happens? It means you have to look for more money, even though you are not earning enough, in order for you to pay. All of these will result in one thing. People will not be able to afford what they could afford before. And you see, between now and June, what you are going to have, which I mentioned in December, and I saw how people circulated the video. Here is it. What you are going to have between now and end of June is majorly economic impact, and that is fear. Now, all you are seeing, they are still economic impact. Between July and December, what you see will be social impact. I don't want to witness that. Yeah. So here is it. We are running out of time. And I expect, Mr. President, the ball is now to take decision. Mr. President, we need to speak with the subnational right now. If he needs to call an emergency FARC meeting, that this is what report is saying. Now, some persons have made it even open on the page of newspaper or online. Yes. So it's important for Mr. President to say, if we succeed together. And if we fail, we are all gone together. As a matter of fact, if we don't quickly do something to stop the continuous flow of Naira, and it has been mentioned to us by classical economists. We saw them decorated with cameras on our television, that don't worry, let Naira find its level. You know where the level of Naira is? It's in a place where people will be hungry. It's in a place where people will be deprived. Because how do you ask Anthony Joshua to fight Debo, Mr. Macaroni, popularly called Adiwa, in a boxing contest? Naira is producing nothing apart from crude that is stolen. And how many countries have Naira in their votes? Have we asked that question? Then how many countries have dollar in their votes? In their central banks? So you are saying that we should keep competing with a country whose currency, 70% are not even in the country. We should be competing with the dollar. Show me one country that is not protecting our economy. Check this. In 2000, there's what we call the Cancun talks, where countries of the world met and they were discussing issues that has to do with development. And this is a development economist. You know, this, I'm telling you literature, what has happened before and has been written by economists. Do you know Cancun talk ended in a deadlock? Why? Because the West was discussing with Africans that Africans should remove all subsidy. But one of the persons that represented Africa, especially the man from Kenya, asked a question. What is subsidy still doing on America cotton farms? Why is America giving subsidy to our cotton farms? So there are things we can't do. Because if this exchange rate issue continues like this, then inflation, next projection, will be more than 30%. Already it's about 30%, 29.9 is 30%. Will be more than 30%. And you know what that means? Food inflation will then grow above 37% to 40%. You know what that means? You go to the market the next day, the next month, the next year, you cannot buy the same thing. Meanwhile, income remains the same. It's not how much you earn. It is what your income can buy. Yes. That's what matters, which is purchasing power.
All right, Paul, let's look at this because I was reading an article and I saw where a professor of economics who also agrees with what you're saying is suggesting that what can happen is that the federal government of FARC shouldn't be shared completely. Everything shouldn't be shared. In fact, they should be saving something. And I remember that Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala's finance minister, even during Jonathan, did say that these same subnational governors also kicked against that, and we saw what happened after that. But my worry, help us get a sense, does it make economic sense really? I don't know if I'm wrong. if FAC is shared, is it not for governors to go back to their states and build infrastructure and, see how they can better the lives of the people, the citizens in their, in their states? So how come they end up changing this money to dollars? To do what, really? Exactly.
Well, research shows that is what may be happening. Whether that has happened or not, well, it's for government and investigation to be done. But that is what research said. So here is it. Okonjo-Iweala, that brilliant economist, did the right thing by saying you must have some buffers, having some money in hard currency. And you saw what happens to the account. It was completely depleted to less than $1 billion, about $500 million. I don't know if it has further reduced or if it remains the same. We call it gains from the subsidy removal. Another one is when we say we're going to sell crude, for instance, at $80. Crude is selling at $90, and we're able to meet up with output. The difference is what we kept in excess crude accounts. My advice, which I have mentioned on some platform, is that some money must be kept because we are no longer waiting for the raining day. The rain is already here. The rains have started. And it's the rains of hunger, the rains of poverty and deprivation. I mentioned in December that this year it will be a 12-month famine. And I lie not to you.
That's scary.
There's nothing scary about it. We are not the first country to go through famine. It's what you do with the famine that matters. There are a lot of people that grow in famine. We have had COVID. COVID was about 6 months of famine, where demand side and supply side globally was on the lockdown. What happened? How did people eat? Policies of government. You saw how nations came out to demonstrate leadership by supporting their own people. Because there was crude, but there was nobody driving. There was no factory opening. How do you make use of all of the resources that you have? So here is it. I agree with the professor in his article. We need to take some money and put this money directly in investment. 2, but that itself may not be a sustainable solution because governors may go to court and they will win in court, trust me. Here is the point. We need to digitalize the FAC disbursement process. And every money that is spent at FAC money, and federal government must show leadership. Every money spent by federal government, all the biddings, whether you want to construct road or you want to buy newspaper, it must be that process. That those who are allowed by law, including journalists, can go to certain websites and check everything how it has been spent. Absolutely. Then we will know how our resources is spent because, again, that's 1. 2, we also need to digitalize our express purchase, whether you are buying from Malam, or you are buying from IMTOs, or you are buying from commercial bank, or you are buying from registered BDC, whichever platform you are buying from, it must be a digital process. What will that do for us? It will bring transparency into the equation, and we know who is buying. Then it's easier for us to now confirm this data, that when this is bought, then that follows. Nigeria was reported to have the largest cash, of dollars. We are not, our economy is not dollarized yet, even though I've started seeing early indicators of dollarization. Okay. And it's important, be one, because when you get to, this is the first phase. When you get to second stage of dollarization, it will be practically impossible to reverse it.
It's almost becoming a status symbol for some people, really.
Yeah.
To spend dollar in Nigeria instead of Naira.
So, but we need to curtail that. We need to change it because as you demand for more dollars and Naira remains the same and people are not demanding for Naira, what will happen? Devaluation. So people holding dollar, we think they are getting richer, but they are not. Let me tell you why. Because whatever they will be buying, we also be getting worse in terms of exchange rate.
All right, let me come in here because before we quickly skedaddle to social media, which is up in a few minutes, there are indications that, I'm sure this is from a source from the Ministry of Finance, that the federal government may be forced to review the 2024 Appropriation Act. Of course, this is because of the development of the foreign exchange. One, when they looked at the benchmark, they pegged it at 800, per dollar. And they're saying, well, that is not feasible because we've seen an increase and a spike to 50%. So now what happens next? Because it means that there is going to be disarray. there will be confusion, and people will not really know how that will be transmitted.
Well, I tell you that this information is coming really late. When we say that fiscal and monetary authority are not communicating, it doesn't mean they don't drink coffee on the same table. How do you, a nation, in December, January, that just fix your exchange rate at 800, then you come back after unification, then the same nation and leadership of the nation feel that, oh, look at what they are selling at parallel market. Let's rate official rate to 1,300. I'm still yet to know the reason why we made that sporadic move to 1,300. Well, for any devaluation you see, it will be huge benefit to the government. Major benefit, because government exports oil. Even though not all the money gets to us, because we have pledged significant part of our oil to debt repayment, unfortunately. So, but what happens? Here is it. If we are selling today, look at, for you to know what the new exchange rate is, what can give you the filler, which will not be exact, is what is our import duty? What is the exchange rate of our import duty? Because you cannot put X in the budget and you use Y for import duty. It must be very close. So you see that what will now be used will be at best more than 1,200, which would mean that government revenue will now suddenly grow without any more, but by just manipulating FX. But what will happen to expenditure? The government will tell you we can now pay minimum wage. Higher minimum wage. Maybe 80, maybe 100. Then you will hear that some expenses, some of the things government intends to spend would also increase. But is that how we should increase in our income? No. Where is productivity? Two things that we are missing, which I mentioned the last time to you, is productivity. Very importantly, the second one is output, exports. So we have not really solved the problem. So you're going to see maybe when the parameter of FX is changed, I also expect that there is adjustment in some spendings of government. Maybe salaries and a few other things would also change as well. So, but when all of these changes happen, it will not take out what inflation is saying. In fact, if we are not careful, it may make inflation to spike further to about 33 to 35%. I'm talking of headline inflation. Because food inflation, as it's going today, the energy it has, it may approach 40% if it will recede at all.
All right, Paul, it's scary that what you said is that we're having economic crisis. Now, what we may have between July and December will be social unrest, maybe.
I didn't say social impact. Social impact. This social impact may come as whatever social crisis. Social unrest is one of them, but it may even be the least. So, we need to work now. We are losing time. We need to work. That is why if we have identified one of the sources that is putting pressure on dollars, which is one of the challenges we have, obviously, it's important for Mr. President to call his team, Federal Executive Council, and many of them are also part of Federal Economic Council. So these are the challenges. This is what researchers are saying. They don't have to be in government to let us know how to run, how governance should be, and how to make life better for the people. So we need to be more sincere in our approach to governance and help the nation to grow.
Okay, so what specific, beyond calling the governors, we know they had a meeting, just about a week ago, and all we hear is about state police to solve insecurity. Let's say probably this data had not come out at the time, so they were not able to discuss this. But one thing is whether the governors themselves understand these principles and will be, willing to abide by this. And I'm asking this because the protests we are having today are happening in states, and it seems to be going from one state to the other. And the AFDB, even in the papers a few days ago, did warn that the removal of fuel subsidy and the impact it's having on the economy may also lead to social unrest, in some of the...
But AFDB supported subsidy
so
removal.
That's where the problem lies.
I was very vehement. I think we're about two that spoke against subsidy removal the way it was removed. Not that don't remove, the way it was removed.
Process.
We believe that one is either you phase out subsidy or you make refinery work before you remove subsidy. You cannot abruptly remove subsidy because you have not checked out how, the policies I've seen is like looking at the numbers without looking at the people. The numbers is not what matters. When you play football, you don't start on the scoreboard and start looking at hoping and praying and fasting that the scoreboard should start changing from 1-0 to 2-0. No. That's not how Nigeria got to the semi-finals. No. Nigeria got to the semi-finals because our players, Osimhen and so on, played in the game. And they scored the goals. That's how we got to the semi-final. That's how we became second in AFCON. The same thing with the economy. When you make economic policy, the people must be paramount in our mind. You cannot remove subsidy. Let's even say we have removed subsidy. By 15th of June, we now devalued by nearly 100% at official rate. Our parallel market by nearly 65%. So you cannot do the two together. If you have done the two together, I'm happy that some of the persons that promoted it and those that are classical economists are coming back to say there will be impact, there will be effect, and the effect is here. But you know the date. The last time I said 12 calendar months is what we have between January to December.
We're coming back to this.
Now, July to December, social impact, and it's not what you want to have.
We'll just have to take a break. How we find around into this conversation. I'm sure you watched the social media. You saw the responses from the netizen. I mean, we've already seen the online social impact of some of these issues, and it seems as if for them, the government is in denial while they are looking at the daylight realities of these issues. Now, in terms of short term, because we've talked about, the issues, how to look at, reviewing policies amongst others, but in terms of short term to mid term to long term, what should be done in the immediate?
One thing that everybody is complaining about, because we are still having economic impact, you can still manage economic impact before it gets to social impact. This is February. We know we have 12 months to go in terms of the crisis that some of the policies and our non-preparedness for this have caused. So the first thing is, how do we boost food supply? The truth is that we don't have the capacity to produce the food ourselves. So the key staple food that is consumed in Nigeria, I would advise strongly that government should allow raw materials to come into Nigeria, especially areas where we have shortage, which may include rice, for instance. So instead of bringing rice to Nigeria, I would advise government we bring paddy into Nigeria because our farms are not safe. So we already have a number of mills in Nigeria. Lagos State has the largest mill, even though I doubt if it's operating to capacity operating at all. We have large mills in Northeast. We have large mills in Northwest. We have in North Central. We have in Nasarawa State. So how do we allow this mill to become functional right now? So government in the next, what I'm saying, we have limited time. We are between now, the 21st of February, to end of March, to conclude on this, such that by April, May, we would have reduced the impact, because you'll be getting into festive season. By July, you start seeing the peak prices, and which, of course, we cascade into end of the year, December, Christmas, and all of those things. So it's important with me, and it's not just for rice. All major produce that we don't have sufficient output. But we must not end there. It must not be a lifestyle. This itself must not last beyond 6 months. We need to now start looking at how do we come up with a national agricultural transformation plan that will link farm to the market, link farm to the industry, and link farm to our institutions. And I mentioned the last time I came here that we need to have farm ops. We're not going to be, this will not be the first time we have it. Military intervention ended it. In the West, we had farm ops under Obafemi Awolowo. In the East, we had farm op under Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. And of course in the North, we heard of the Granite Pyramid and so on that we had. How do we rekindle farm ops? Government must, however, guarantee security of those that will work in those areas. So for food, you are going to see reduction in food inflation. So if you can increase output, if you can increase supply, why I will not support 100% importation is because it's going to put pressure on the dollar that we already have. So these, among others, at least I will give one, because of time, one day there are a number of other things we can do between short, medium, and long term. But this will reduce the impact almost immediately.
Of course, this is an ongoing conversation, really. It's a developing story. And until what we are seeing, goes away, we will keep talking about it and we'll keep inviting you. So we thank you very much for always giving us insightful discussions, and analysis on some of these issues. Paul Alaje has joined us. He is a renowned economist. Thank you so much.